Site 42, Expite, Title 42, the Public Health and Welfare, Chapter 116, Emergency Planning, Community Right to Know, Subchapter 2, Reporting Requirements. Subchapter 2, Reporting Requirements, 42 United States Standard Code, Section 11021. Title, the Public Health and the Welfare, Emergency Planning, Community Right to Know, Reporting Requirements. Section 11021. Material data sheets. Basic requirement is submission of an MSDS of a list or list the owner operator of any facility which is required to prepare the available materials safety data sheets for a hazardous chemical under occupational self-health and Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, Title 29 U.S. Standard Code 651. In regulations promulgated under the Act, it shall be submitted in material safety data sheets for each of the chemicals or a list of chemicals as described in paragraph 2 to each of the following: A, the appropriate local emergency planning committee; B, the state emergency response commission; C, the fire department with jurisdiction over the facility. To the contents of the list. A list of chemicals referred to paragraph 1 should include each of the following: A or I. A list of hazardous chemicals for which a material safety data sheet is required for the Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970, Title 2940 Standard Code 651. Regulations promulgated under the Act grouped in categories of health, physical hazards, and set as forth as such active regulations promulgated under the such act and or in such other categories as administrated may prescribe under subparagraphs 2. A chemical name, common name of each of the chemical uses as provided by the material safety data sheet. 3. The hazardous component of each of the chemicals provided by the material safety data sheet. B. The purpose of the list is under the paragraph. The administrator may be modified categories of health physical hazards as set forth under the Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970. Regulations promulgated under the Act requiring information to be required in the terms of groups of hazard chemicals which present similar hazards in an emergency treatment of mixtures. An owner operator may meet the requirements of this section with the requirement of hazard chemical which mixture is doing one of the following: A, submitting the material safety data sheet or identifying a list of each element compound in the mixture which is a hazardous chemical. Is if more than one mixture has same element or compound, only one material safety data sheet or one listing of the element is compounded and necessary. B, the submitting of the material safety data sheet for identifying a list of mixture itself. B, the threshold. The administrator may establish the threshold quantities for hazardous chemicals below in which no facility such subject to the provisions of this section. The threshold quantities may, in the administrator discretion, may be based on classes of chemical categories of facilities. C, the availability of MSDS requests to take to the local planning local emergency planning committee. If the owner of the operated facility submits a list of chemicals under subsection of the section of the owner of the operator requests, the local emergency planning committee shall submit material data sheets for the chemical of on list of subcommittee to public. A local emergency planning committee, upon request of any person, shall make available material safety data sheets of the person in accordance to the section 11044 of this title. And if the material safety data sheets, the committee shall request the sheet from the facility of the owner, then make the sheet available for the person in accordance with the section 11044 of this title. The initial submission and updating. Initial material safety data sheet is required under the section of the respective hazardous chemical which is provided before the later. A, the chapter A25 D DA D1A 12 12 months after October 17, 1986. B, 3 months or after the owner of the operator of the facility is required to prepare how available of the material safety data sheet is of the chemical under Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 and regulations promulgated under the Act. Within 3 months following the discovery by an owner or operator significant new information concerning an aspect of hazardous material in the material safety data sheet was previously submitted in the local emergency planning committee under the subsection A of this section, revised the sheet shall provide to such each person hazardous chemical defined as the purpose of the section of the hazardous chemical has meaningful, given such terms and sections of 1910 dot 1200 of 19.1200c of the Title 29 of the Code of Federal Regulations, except for such terms, does not include the following: any food additive, color additive, drug, cosmetic, regulated food, drug administration. B, the administration presents a solid manufactured item. Extent exposure substance does not occur under the normal conditions of use. Any substance to the extent is used in personnel, family, household purposes is presented in the same form of concentric as a product, package, or distribution use of general public. 4, a substance to the extent is the use of research liability of hospital other medical facilities under the direct supervision of technically qualified individual. 5, the substance of extent it is used in a routine agricultural operations is fertilizer held in for the safe by retail ultimate customers. Source published 99 through 499, Title 3, Section 3.1, October 17, 1986, 100, Statute 1736. Reference in text: the Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970, referred to in subsections A1 to A1, B, D1, and B, and published 91 through 596, December 29th, 1970, 84 Stat F1590, as amended in classified principle in Chapter 15, Section 65(1) at sequent of the Title 29 Labor for the Principal Classification Act of the Code for short, title not to set under 65(1) of the title and tables. Site 42. Section 11,022, the Public Health and Welfare, Chapter 160, Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know, Chapter 2, Reporting Requirements. 11,022, Emergency Hazard Chemical Inventory Forms, basic requirements for the owner-operator of any facility which is required to prepare and have available material safety data sheets for a hazardous chemical under Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970, Title 29, U.S. Standard Code 651, regulations promulgated that the Act should prepare, submit an emergency hazard chemical inventory here thereafter chapter referred to as an inventory to each of the following: the operator local emergency planning committee, the state emergency response commission, the fire department of the jurisdiction and facilities, the inventor from the containing entire information described in subsection D1 of the section shall be submitted on or before 1988 and annually thereafter March 1 and shall contain within the respects of preceding calendar year. The preceding does not apply if the owner and operator provides the same deadline within the respects of the same calendar. Terrier 2, information as described in subsection D2 of this section, the recipient described in paragraph 1 and 3, the owner-operator may meet the requirements of the section respect of hazardous chemicals, which mixture is doing one of the following: A, providing information of the form on each element of the compound mixture, which is the hazardous chemical. If more than one mixture has the same element or compound, only one listing of the inventory from the element or the compound at the facility is necessary. But B, providing information on the inventory form on the mixture itself. 3B, the threshold of establishing threshold quantities for hazardous chemicals covered by the section below, which has no facility such subject to provisions of the section. The threshold quantities, the administrator discretion be based on the class of chemicals, categories of facilities. That C, the hazardous chemicals covered. A hazardous chemical is subject to the requirements of the section as in a hazardous chemical for the material safety data sheet for a listing required in section 11,002 of title D. Contents of the information terrier information aggregated information category and inventory shall provide the information described in subparagraph B and aggregated for the hazardous chemicals in the Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970, Title 29, U.S. Standard Code of 651, the regulations promulgated under the Act. B, required information. The information referred to subparagraph A is the following: and 1, estimate and ranges of the maximum amount of hazardous chemicals in category present at the facility at during in the preceding of the calendar year, and estimated in ranges of average daily amount of hazardous chemicals in a category present in the facility during the present siding year. The general location. 3. The general location of the hazardous chemicals in each category. See the modification. The purpose of reporting information in paragraph for the administration. It may modify categories of health, physical hazards, and set forth occupational safety, health, and Act 1970 regulations promulgated under the Act require information to be reported in the terms of a group and hazardous chemicals in which present similar hazard and emergency. 1 and 2. The reporting individual hazardous chemicals of special concern of emergency response personnel. Tier 2 information and information shall be provided by the following additional information for each hazardous chemical presents a facility, but in only one request in accordance with subsection E of the section. A is be the chemical name and the common name of the chemical provided in the material safety data sheet. E, the estimated and range of the maximum amount of the hazardous chemical presence in the facility at any time during the preceding calendar, and estimating the ranges of average daily amount of the hazardous chemical present of the facility during the preceding calendar. D, the brief description of the manner of storage of the hazardous chemical. E, the location of the facility of the hazardous chemical. F, the indication whether the owner elects to withhold location information of the specific hazardous chemical from the disclosure of the public under 11,044 of this title. E, availability of Tier 2 information. One, the availability of state commission, local committees, and fire departments upon request of the state emergency commission or local emergency committee planning to file the department with jurisdiction over the facility of the owner or operator facility provided Tier 2 information described in subsection D in the section, and the person making in the request of any such request shall be respected in a specific facility. 2, the availability of to the other state and local officials. A state and local official acting in his or her official capacity access to the Tier information submitting and requesting a state emergency response commission and local emergency committee. Upon the receipt of a request for the Tier 2 information, the state commission and local committee shall, pursuant to the paragraph 1, requesting the facility owner and operator of the Tier 2 information, how make it available such information to the official. 3, the availability of the public. A, in general, and any person and may request a state emergency response commission and local emergency committee of Tier 2 information relating preceding calendar year with respect to the facility, and such request shall be written and shall be with respect on the specific facility. B, the automatic provisions of the information public and any Tier 2 information of state emergency response commission local emergency planning has its on its possession shall be available to a person making a request under the paragraph in accordance to 11,042 of this title, and the State Emergency Response Commission of the local emergency committee does not have to be Tier 2 information in its possession. Request for Tier 2 information State Emergency Response Commission of the local emergency planning committee shall be pursuant to paragraph 1, requesting the facility owners operators Tier 2 information with respect to hazardous chemical of which facility has been stored in the excess of 10,000 pounds present at the facility at any time during the preceding calendar year, and making sure that the information available according with the section 11,044 is the title of the person making a request. See the discretion provision of the information to the public. In the case of Tier 2 information which is not in the possession of the State Emergency Response Commission or local emergency planning committee within the respect of hazardous chemicals which facility has stored in the amount of less than 10,000 pounds present in the facility in any time during the preceding calendar year, a request of the person must include the general needs for information the State Emergency Response Commission and local emergency planning may pursuant to paragraph request the facilities owners and operators of Tier 2 information behalf of the person making a request upon receipts of information requested behalf of such person the State Emergency Response Commission and local emergency planning and shall make this information available according to the section 11,004 E4 this title to the person. D, the response in 45 days. A State Emergency Response Commission of a local emergency planning committee shall respond to the request of Tier 2 information under the paragraph no later than 45 days after the date of receipt of the request. If the fire department access upon request to owner operator of a facility which files inventory under the section of the firing department jurisdiction over the facility by the owner or the operator of the inspection of the facility shall provide the fire department specification local information hazardous chemicals at facilities formats for forms. Administrators should publish a uniform format of inventory forms within 3 months of October 17, 1986. If the administrator does not publish such forms, owners and operators facilities subject to requirements of the section shall provide the information required under the section by letter. Published 99 through 499, Title 3, Section 312, October 17, 1986, 100 Stat 1738. Reference in text is the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 referred into subsects A1, D1A, C1 and published 91 through 596, December 29, 1970, 84 Stat 1590, amended with a classified principle with Chapter 15, Section 61651, and the Title 29 for Labor. The Committee Classification Act is code is the see the short title note under the Section 65(1) of Title 229 tables. Cited 42 United States Code Section 11023. Public Health and Welfare, Emergency Planning, Community Right to Know, Reporting Requirements, 11,023, the Toxic Chemical Release Forms. Basic Requirement, the owner or operator of the facility subject to the requirements of the section completing Toxic Chemical Release Form is published by the Section G of the section of the each toxic chemical listed under the subsection C. The section that was manufactured preceded by the other used quantities exceeding the toxic chemical threshold quantity established by the subsection F of the section during the preceding calendar year at such a facility. Such form shall be submitted to the administrator and officials of the state designated by the governor on or before July 1988, annually after July 1st and shall be contained reflecting release during the preceding calendar year. Covered owners and operator facilities. In general, the requirements of the section shall apply to the owners, operators, facilities that have 10 or more full-time employees that are in standard industrial classification codes 20 and through 29 or 20 through 39 as in effect as on July 1st, 1985. The manufacturer prescribed otherwise used in toxic chemical listed under the subsection of the section's excess in quantity of that toxic chemical established under the subsection F of this section and during the calendar for which a release form is required under the section. The administrator may add and delete standard industrial codes for purposes subparagraph, but only to the extent necessary to provide that in each standard industrial code of section applies is relevant to the purpose of this section. The purpose of this section is the manufacturer remains to produce, prepare, import, and compound in toxic chemicals. The term process means the preparation of toxic chemicals after manufacturing. The distribution is commerce. One, the same is the form used in the same form of physical state as in or in different physical state, and that is which is received by the person preparing such a chemical. To the part in the article containing the toxic chemical. To the discretion of the application of additional facilities administration on how his motion or at the request of the governor state which is regarded as a facility located in the state may apply to the requirements section of the owners and operators, particularly in the facility of the manufacturer's process and otherwise toxic chemical listed under the section C of the section of the administration. D determines the action is warranted in basis of toxicity of the toxic chemical, proximity of the facilities that release the toxic chemical or pollution center of the history of the release of such chemical of such facility or such other facilities of administrator deems appropriate. See the toxic chemicals covered. The toxic chemicals covered are subject to the requirements in the section at those chemicals on the list of the committee printed numbers 99 through 169 of the Senate Committee of the Environmental Public Works titled Toxic Chemicals subject to Section 313 of the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act of 1986, Title 42 United States Code 11023, including any revised versions of the list may be pursuant in subsection D and or E of the section. Revision of the administrator. In 1, the general administrator may be rule and add to delete chemical form from list of described subsection C, the section of at any time to the additions of the chemical may be made, may be added, and the administrator determines in his judgment that there is sufficient evidence to establish any one of the following. A chemical is known as the cause or responsible be an anticipated cause of insignificant adversity acute to human health effects and concentration levels that are responsible likely to exist and beyond facilitized site boundaries as a result of continuous frequently reoccurring leaks. The chemical is known as to cause and responsible anticipated to cause in human 1. The cancer tetragenic effects, serious irreversible reproductive dysfunctions, neurological disorders, heritable genetic mutations, or other chronic health effects. The chemical is known to cause or response anticipated to cause because of it. 1. Its toxicity. 2. Its toxicity and persistence in the environment. 3. The toxicity tendency to bioaccumulate in the environment. A significant adversary effect on environment and sufficient seriousness in the judgment and administration to warrant the reporting under the section. The number of chemicals included on the list prescribed is subsection C of the section on the basis of preceding section of the may constitute the in aggregate no more than 25% of the total number of the chemicals on the list determining under the paragraph shall be based on generally assisted scientific principles of laboratory tests or appropriated designated conducted epidemiologically logical or other populational studies available to the administrator. 3 deletions. A chemical may be deleted after the administrator determines there is no sufficient evidence to establish any criteria described in the paragraph. 4 effective data. Any revision made after January 1st or before December 1st of any calendar year shall take an effect at the beginning of the next calendar year, and revision of the after December 1st of any calendar year and before January 1st of the next calendar year. It's called the exclamated 1 year. For a year shall be take effect beginning with a calendar year following such next year calendar year. The petitions, and generally any petition of the administrator to the add, delete a chemical be listed on the subsection C of this section of the basis criteria of the paragraph A and B of the section D2 of the section of within 180 days after the receipt petition. The administration shall take one of the following: A. Initiative rulemaking to delete chemical list of accordance in subsection D2 to D3 of this section. B. The explanation of why the petition is denied. To the government petitions, a state governor may petition the administrator to add the delete a chemical from the list described as subsection C of this section of the basis. This is the criterion subparagraph A, B, and C, section D2, and of this section in the case of such a petition of the state of the governor and to delete a chemical from the petition shall be treated in the same manner as the petition. Such a petition from received in a petition received under the paragraph 1 to delete a chemical. In the case of such a petition from the state governor to add a chemical to the chemical will be added to the list of within 100 days after the receipt of the petition, unless the administrator A1 initiates a rulemaking adding to the chemical list according to the subsection D2 of the section, or B publishes the explanation of why the administrator believes the petition does not meet in the requirements of subsection D2 of the section of the adding chemical to the list. F. The threshold of reporting to 1. The toxic chemical threshold amount. The toxic threshold amount of the purpose reporting of toxic chemicals under section are follows within respect of 10 toxic chemicals used in facilities. 10,000 pounds of toxic chemical per year. By the respect of the toxic chemical manufacture process and facility with the toxic chemical release form required to be submitted in section on the form on or before July 1st, 1988, 75,000 pounds of toxic chemical per year. For the form required to be submitted on before July 1st, 1980, 5,000 pounds of toxic chemical per year. 3. The form required for submitted or before July 1st, 1990, for each of the following thereafter, 25,000 pounds in toxic chemical per year. 2. The revisions and administrations may be established the threshold amount of the toxic chemical different from the amount established in the paragraph One such revised threshold shall obtain the reporting a substantial majority of total release of the chemical at all facilities subject to the requirements of the section. The amounts established under the paragraph, the administrator discretion be based on a chemical and a chemicals categories and facilities. G. The form information required no later than June 1st, 1987. The administrator shall publish a uniform toxic chemical release of the facilities covered in the section, and the administrator does not publish such a form, or owners and the operator's facility subject to the requirements of this section shall provide the information required under the section of letter postmarked on before or the date before the form is or such form shall A. Provide the name and location of the principal business activities of the facility. B. Include an appropriate certification signed by a senior official within the management responsibility for the persons completing report regarding the accuracy, completeness of the reports, provided that the submission of each of the following items of information, each listed toxical chemical known to be present at the facility. 1. Whether the toxic chemicals or facilities manufactured, processed, otherwise used in general categories for the use of chemicals. 2. The estimate of the maximum amount and ranges of the toxic chemical present in the facility at any time during the preceding calendar years. 3. For each waste stream, the waste treatment of the disposal methods employed for the estimated treatment efficiently typically achieved for such methods in the waste stream. 4. The annual quantity of the toxic chemical entering each environmental medium. 2. The usual available data. In order to provide the information required under this section, the owner and operator of the facility may be readily available, including monitoring data and collecting pursuant to the other provisions of the law, which is such data are not readily available. Responsible estimates for the amounts involved. Nothing in this section requires a monitoring measurement of the quantity, concentration, frequency, and toxic chemicals released in the environmental beyond the monitor measurements required under the provisions of other law and regulations. In order to ensure the consistency, and the administrator shall require the data can express in the common units. The use of release forms. The release form under the section of the intended to provide information to the federal, state, and local governments and the public, including the citizens and communities surrounding covered the facilities. These releases shall be available consistent to the section 11,044 of this title, and to inform the person about a released toxic chemical to the environment, to assist the government agencies, research, and other persons in conduct research, data gathering to the aid of the development of appropriate regulations, guidelines, and standards for this other similar purposes. Modifications report frequencies. 1. General. The administration may modify the frequency submitting report under this section of the administrator may not modify the frequency to be any more than often than annually. The modification may apply to either nationally or specifically geographically to the following. A. All toxic release in all forms required under this section. B. The classic chemicals or category facilities. C. The specific toxic chemicals. D. A specific facility requirements. 2. The requirements of modification may be made under paragraph 1 only in the administrator. A. That makes up the finding of modification constitutes a provision of subsection H in the section based on 1. The experience of previously submitted toxic chemical release forms, and 2. The determinations made under the paragraph 3 and B. The finding is made rulemaking in accordance with subsection 5.3 of Title 5, determining the administrator here shall make the following determines with respect to proposed modifications before making the modification under the paragraph. A. The extent in which the information relating to the proposed modification provided toxic chemical release forms used by the administrator and other agencies of federal government, states, local governments, and health professionals and the public. B. The extent in which the information is 1. Readily available to potential users of the other source state reporting programs. 2. Providing the administrator under the federal law on the state program. C. The extent in which the modification would impose additional or unreleasable burdens of the facility subject to the reporting requirements under this section. 4. A 5-year review. The modification made under this subsection shall be reviewed at least once every 5 years. Shall they examine the modification, ensure the requirements in paragraphs 2 and 3, and still justify the continuation of modification. Any change in modification reviewed under this paragraph shall be made in accordance with the subsection notice to Congress. 5. The administrator shall notify Congress of the intention to initiate a rulemaking modification under the subsection. The notification administrator shall delay initiation rulemaking at least 12 months or no more than 24 months after the date of such notification. 6. The judicial review. In a judicial review, the rulemaking which establishes a modification number under the subsection, a court may hold an unlawful set aside agency finding conclusions found on the unsupported substantial evidence. 7. The applicability. The modification of the subsection apply to the calendar year reporting period beginning no earlier than January 1st, 1993. Effective date. Any modification made on the January 1st made before December 1st on the calendar year shall take effect beginning the next calendar year, and a modification on the after December 1st of any calendar year before January 1st of the next calendar year shall take extent beginning with the calendar following such as the next calendar year. The EPA management of the data. The administration establishes maintain a computer database of national toxic chemical inventory based on data submitted to the administrator under section administration shall these data accessibly computer telecommunications other than means these data accessibility computer telecommunications other means to any person that costs and reimbursable basis K report no later than June 30th 1991. The computer Comptroller General in the Consolation Administration appropriate officials and the statute shall submit to Congress and report including each of the following. 1. Description of the steps taken of the administrator and the states implementing the requirements of the section, including the steps taken, the information collected under the section available for the accessibility of the public. 2. The description of the extent in which the information collected under the section has been used in Environmental Protection Agency, a federal agency of the states, and the public and purposes for which the information has been published. 3. The identification and the evaluation of the options, modification, requirements sections of the purpose making information collected for the section made more useful. 1. The mass balancing study. In general, the administration arranged the balance study to be the carried out national academic schemes of mass balance information collected by the administrator of the paragraph 3. Administration shall submit to Congress a report of each study no later than 5 years after October 17, 1986. 2. The proposal of the study and files determine accuracy of the information toxic chemical releases. B. The access of value obtaining mass balance information portions, therefore determining waste reduction efficiency different facilities categories facilities including effectiveness in toxic chemical regulations promulgated under law under this chapter. C. The access of utilities such information evaluation toxic chemical management practices of facility categories of facilities covered over the section. D. Determination of implementations of mass balance information collection national scale similar to the mass balance information collection carried out by the administrator under paragraph 3, including the implications of the use of such collection as part of the national annual quantity toxic chemical release program. 3. The information collect. A. The administrator shall acquire the availability of mass balance information state currently conduct for during the 5 year after October 17, 1986 initiation of a mass balance oriented annual quantity toxic chemical release program if the information is from such states provides an inadequate representation of industrial class categories to carry out the purpose of the study. And administration also may acquire mass balance information necessary for the study for the representative numbers of facilities in other states. B. An information acquired under the subsection shall be available in public except that upon a show satisfactory the administration may personally the information or particularly part of their administrator or any other officer employee representatives has access to under the section of the public would divulge information entitled in protection subsection 905 title 18. If such information shall be part of the considered confidentiality or confidential in accordance with the proposed section except the such information of part the disclosure of the officers, employees, unauthorized representatives of the United States concerned with carrying out this section. The administration may promulgate regulations prescribing procedures and collecting mass balance information under the paragraph B or D. The purpose of collection may balance information. Subparagraph A. The administrator may require submission information of state or facility. And B. For the mass balance of definition, the purpose of subsection of the term mass balance means the accumulation annual quantities chemicals transported in facilities, procedures in facilities, consumed in facility, used in facility, accumulated in facility, released from a facility, transported from a facility as a waste, as a commercial product or byproduct of the component commercial product or byproduct. The source of published 99 through 499, Title 3, Section 313, October 7, 1986, 100 Stat 1741, expediting community rights to initiate initiatives, Memorandum of the President of the United States, August 8, 1995, 6 FR 41791, provided memorandum administration of the Environmental Protection Agency, heads of executive directors of the agency, Title 42 U.S. Standard Codes 11,001 to 11,050, the EPCRA of the Pollution Prevention Act of 1990, 42 U.S. Standard Code 13,101, 13,109, providing an initiative approach of the protecting public health and environment, ensuring that the communities are informed of the toxic chemicals being released into the air, land, and manufacturing facility. I am committed to the effective implementation of this law because of the community right to know, protection provided in basic information tooling, encourage informed community-based and environmental decision-making, and providing strong incentive of the business to find their own ways of preventing pollution. The law provides environmental protection agencies with the substantial authority to add the toxic release inventory of EPCRA of new chemicals, two new classes of industrial facilities, 3 additional types of information concerning toxic chemicals facilities. Community rights should be enhanced wherever possible as in appropriate. EAPA currently is engaged in an ongoing process addressing potential of facilities expansions of the collection of information. I am committed to fully and openly process of the policy issued of the EPA exercises of the authority, so the consideration of these issues are fully accomplished during the administration. I am directing the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency and consulting with the Office of Management and Budget Appropriate Federal Agencies with applicable technical functional expertise as necessary to the taking of the following actions: continuing the expedited basis of the public notice of the community rulemaking procedures, whether the inappropriate and consistent section of 313 of EPCRA 42, Title 42 U.S. Standard Code 11023B to the designation of 20 and 39 as an effective July 1st, 1985 for SIC code and designation and standard industrial classification manual published in the Office of Management Budget, and EPA shall complete the rulemaking process accelerated schedule. The P development implementation expedited upon transparent consideration reporting under EPCRA and information of mass balance and materials accounting and other chemical use of data pursuant into the section of 313B1A of EPCRA Title 42 U.S. Standard Code 11023B1A. EPA short report of progress of this effort of October 1st, 1995, which with a goal of obtaining significant information to be able to be informed or judgment concerning implementations to an appropriate program. These actions should be continued unless specifically prohibited, and head of the executive department of the agency shall be insisted in the Environmental Protection Agency implementing directive as quickly as possible. The directive as in the internal management of the executive branch does not correct rightly to the benefit, substantive procedure enforceable against the United States as the agency instrumental of the officer employs or any other person directing of the office management budget authorized directly to publish a memorandum of the Federal Register. William J. Clinton. Explanated 1, so as an original probably should be the calendar. 42 is U.S. Standard of Chapter 3 General Provisions. Title 42, the Public Health and Welfare Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know General Provisions. Subchapter 3, General Provisions, and